Okay, hello again to anyone who's watching us. We are now kicking off another session of the Silt versus Osama Flesh and Change. And where we left things off last time, our two groups of custodians were in two very different but very hairy situations. So in the Skyward Sprawl, Nora and Vitria style had attempted to resolve the assignment by figuring out how the sprawl was growing, and their solution was to come up with phase two in the plans and essentially alter the plans to make it seem as if the Court of the Slag King had always intended for this additional fleshy and horrible growth to happen. As they did so, the consequence of the mixed success on resolving that assignment was the followers of the Slag King, led by Surveyor Munger, were very happy. Mother Asbestos, who of course leads the Dreamers of Ease, the other faction within the tower who want the tower to keep on growing, very dissatisfied, and she herself burst into the ground floor lobby where the two of you now are, ready to start a ruckus. And then Nora rather brilliantly attempted to lead a kind of musical theatre tableau, Mother Asbestos played by a giant puppet, the two sides kind of coming together, Les Mis warring factions like, and then for Nora just to stop them both, take the spotlight. And what exactly she intended from there, we didn't quite get to see because we rolled a failure. Nora was briefly in danger of being very horribly killed by the Watcher in the Wings. We ran then bumped that up to a mixed success, and so now we are going to see the consequence of that, but also the positive outcome play out. On the other side of the peninsula, in the mountains, Vernon's Lodge, the hotel where a bit of a murder mystery was taking place, Dr. Nim Harrow and Frank Idle gathered together all of their suspects in a room, accused their man with a brilliant theory about why he done it, and were proven to be absolutely wrong. So we're going to have to deal with the consequences of that too next, as well as the fact that Dr. Harrow covertly irradiated one of the other guests, which is going to come into play. I can't wait to see when.
I have a horrifying scene in mind.
Amazing. All right, really excited for that. So yeah, two really exciting moments. But I think we're just going to kick things off by handing over to Nora for an unnarrated verse.
Yes. So as part of the Skyward Sprawl, I believe we marked the verse saying each custodian recounts an episode from their childhood when a god violently warped the built environment around them. So as Nora is standing in between the no longer a puppet Mother Asbestos and the I've forgotten his name, but the leader of the Slag King. I'm going between extremists and cultists. I know neither of them the right word, but we are going to I think, okay, I'm changing my plans from what I wrote slightly, but we're going to have one of the puppet strings that had previously been attached to Mother Asbestos fall, and Nora is catching it, and we are gonna go like sepia toned or something to flash back to Nora sitting at a school desk with a similar piece of string, a similar wire on the desk in front of her. And she is one of the last people to have filed into this classroom. It's a group of students ranging from Nora's, sorry, I just opened something I didn't mean to. Nora's like 13 to the eldest of about 18, and each of them has a single object on their desk. So Nora has this piece of wire, and the oldest student has a gun that they are not observing, not identifying, examining. So if you were to look at that student, you'll notice that they have a gun with no bullets. One other person has a lighter, another person has a rusty knife, and then the door opens and the quote unquote teacher of this class comes in. The bottom of their trouser leg rides up a little bit, and we see the familiar flashing light of a tracking anklet of a sacrificial convict. And they stand at the front of the class, behind the desk, and as the clock ticks to 9 a.m., the start of the school day, the door locks. And a few seconds later, I'm trying to figure out how yeah, I guess we're just going to say that some of the desks start to change into forms that is more like a door, kind of just freestanding for some reason, or a crate, and a few of them form walls, and all of the students have stood up, and their classroom has become something of a maze. And a few students who are at the front of the class can hear their teacher beginning to attempt to run for the door. And all of these kids are now chasing after this convict with their quote unquote weapons, whatever it is they have. And the goal of this class is the goal of this class is twofold: to kill or incapacitate the teacher to get dismissed early, and to find the door so that they can, in fact, get out of this classroom. And if someone were to observe the walls that have sprung up to create this twisting, turning maze, they would see a small sigil of, what do I want to make it? Of a closed eye with a dagger crossing the front of it, which is the sign of I guess, yeah, the god of like spies and assassins in this quote, I'm using this a lot, quote unquote, family of gods that this branch of the military that Nora and her brother have been raised in worship. And then I think let's focus on that sigil for a bit, and we'll fade into the next oh, and I also said for this one, I suppose at the bottom of the walls, You know what? Let's just leave it at the spy and assassin god, because I had a god that I had created, but I might use it later. And the next verse I have to narrate is a flashback to the event which made you step away from your faith. I think we'll have that same closed eye and dagger on a beaded prayer bracelet that Nora is wearing next to several others from like multiple different gods. And as we move down the row of bracelets, and we see her hands holding a rope that she is pulling, and she has just raised the curtain on a theatrical production. The let's call it the final theatrical production that she will be involved in prior to joining the custodians. And she's standing in the wings watching the audience. It's kind of, you know, the blotchy dark shapes of the audience and the bright light that's on the stage. And she's watching the audience and then watches the lead actor come out onto the stage and begin his monologue that this play starts with. And she sees how there are people in the audience who aren't paying attention to him. Some of them are talking. A few people are on their phone. And he keeps going. He keeps acting like he's got every eye in the theater on him. But there are people who aren't watching, even though they should be. And it feels as if there must be something wrong with this actor or his performance if he's not getting all of the attention that he should be getting. And I feel like I have to end there, but I'm literally, you know what? I have backstory stuff that I wanted to put into this verse, but it's not going to happen because we're ending there.
Very nice, thank you. So we're maybe fading back in from these memories to you on this stage across the littered lobby of the Skyward Sprawl that you've conjured for yourself. And you can feel, I think, the spotlight upon you, these two amassed sides on either side of you, waiting breathless for you to speak. And I think perhaps the one thing that you do realize as you stand there in the spotlight is that the watcher is growing impatient with you. And Nora, of course, you have this collection of comedy and tragedy masks as one of your items. And I think maybe, what do you reckon? Are they in your pockets, or are they maybe hung around your neck? Where would they be on your person?
I think Nora's probably been carrying around like a messenger bag, maybe, or like a rucksack. Yeah, let's make it a rucksack because then she can carry her altar around with her as well. So she's kind of got
Okay.
this bag over her shoulders, like just
think-
very casually carrying around comedy and tragedy masks and a makeup kit, and probably a soapbox as well, because I think I've got a soapbox on my altar.
I think in that case, you won't notice it yet, but maybe later on when Nora is trying to get some rest or just rummaging through her bag in a quiet moment, she might take out her collection of masks and just see for a heartbeat that all of them have taken on the same expression of the actor from her verse who is struggling to hold the crowd's attention. And it's his face, it's definitely his face, but it's contorted into a grotesque scream of silent agony. And then all at once, just the masks crumble to dust in her hands, the plaster fragmenting. It's most certainly a warning sign from her god, but mechanically, we're going to remove that item as the consequence of the mixed success. Just to check in for a second, Vitria, what are you doing as you see this kind of incredible performance play out before you?
I think Vitria was in the performance. So I think everyone who isn't Nora is very confused and dazed right now, because when the performance, when the influence ends, I think it just leaves everyone very discombobulated. So I think Vitria is just staring at Nora and saying, "What happens now, Nora? You're in the spotlight."
Think Nora's going to drop this wire that she's gonna pocket the wire that she caught and just say, like, shrug and say, if everyone could sit down for a minute, we could talk this through like, semi-adult, rational people-ish. She kind of gestures at Mother Asbestos as like, not sure if you count as adult or person or rational, but we're including you in this.
Awesome. I think absolutely. Go on.
I think Vitria takes her lead and pulls out her minute book and says, "We have a quorum. The first meeting of phase 2 shall now begin. If everyone would take their seats, Nora Kane is chairing the session."
Incredible. I think absolutely Mother Asbestos is the one. Her aquiline face just contorts into something like a smirk. And then she turns her great wings very nearly swiping at Surveyor Munger and the Slag King's followers. But then she just swoops up to that shattered stained glass window over the entrance and takes up a perch there with her arms folded. Munger and the Slag King followers kind of look at each other a bit discombobulated. There's some grumbling. There's some, "Oh, shouldn't we just kill them? Should we just?" But then gradually they do sit down, looking almost like a school assembly, with arms folded, a little bit sullen, waiting to see what comes out of this.
I think Nora briefly just shoots a glare at Vitria for like putting her in charge of this, because she doesn't know anything about building code or whatever that Vitria actually does know. And she's going to kind of just like stand up straighter and say, first item on the meeting agenda, how can we get you, she points to Mother Asbestos, to agree to let phase 2 continue as planned?
Let me understand this, Mother Asbestos says. You speak of phase 2, but what you mean is you wish to foil our plans for this building. You wish the sprawl to halt its expansion, to remain where it is, and for us to accept that?
King Vitria looks up from the minutes and says, "Let it be noted that Secretary Stahl adds an addendum that this is the only viable way forward." And then she looks at Mother Asbestos and says, "Mother Asbestos sends her apologies and has exited the meeting," and just glares at her.
Are you interesting? Are you actually trying to throw her out of this meeting?
You know what? Because there's a
This-
bit of like legacy power of the Watcher. Vitri is going to try and just sort of pull in a little bit of the fiction to finish this by essentially like read it and read and understand it, or whatever it is, but whatever that read the minutes and understand them, to basically push the antagonists out of the meeting so that the first item on the agenda, as the chair has dictated, can begin.
Okay. I mean, I will absolutely accept that if successful, the power of the Watcher forces this, but this is an antagonistic move towards this quite powerful angel figure, right? So I think you're gonna have to roll to see, is she gonna put up with this? Are her followers gonna put up with this? If you'll take that.
And I'm a disappointment too, so that's a bit of a problem. But
You are a disappointment. That's absolutely true. Yeah, I would suggest that you're going to have to make a revelation roll if you're going to try and forcibly evict Mother Asbestos and her followers in order to proceed with this plan.
She's being kicked out of the call, but I'm going to put my hat on and just look at her while wearing my hat and say, "I'm the surveyor here," and so yeah, basically, I'm basically just using, like, trying to soak up some of the leftover power of Nora's god to make the minutes have kind of canonical power, essentially.
Awesome. Well, that's the hard hat will nullify a disappointment, so that'd be a flat roll. I would say presence or communion make the most sense, which are both 0 for you.
Yeah, so I'll just do that. Let's try that.
And I guess, what are you afraid is going to happen here if you fail?
I'm afraid that the minute taker is going to be replaced by another candidate.
I think this is how it is worse than that. The minute taker may well be replaced, but I think probably everything that Nora has worked to establish here could so easily come down. She's got this detente between the two sides, but being told essentially you are now being forced out of the building is going to make Mother Asbestos entirely turn hostile to this whole process. And this civil war that you were on the verge of stopping is very much going to come to pass with the two of you caught right in the middle. So it will not be a happy ending for the Skyward Sprawl.
Let's see. Okay. Oh, nice. I got a boxcars. Got 12.
A 12? What did you say? Oh no.
Sorry?
Oh, you said oh no. I thought it was bad.
No. I know. Oh no, to the it's worse than that before I roll.
Oh, I see. Okay. Amazing. Well, let's definitely come back to the consequence of that 12, which is amazing. And let's go back over to something that has not gone quite so amazingly. Vernon's Lodge, Ray Ghibli, the Slag Prince, having just been accused. I think we said that he was midway through a sentence where it was something like, "And it'll be a cold day in hell before I," as smash, the window behind him bursts open. He is dragged out screaming into the night. And you hear his screams get softer and softer for a moment. And then there's silence. And then just the horrible foghorn-like bray comes from somewhere in the darkness of the hedge maze. And Frank, I'm going to imagine in this drawing room that maybe you are close enough that you just kind of duck as something comes whizzing back out of the broken window, hits the wall, and Ray Ghibli's frozen, severed head just cracks, splinters, and then dashes into fragments at your feet. There is screaming, there is chaos. God.
That was not intentional. That was not how this was supposed to go. Everybody please evacuate this room immediately. We will bar the doors. We can't allow anyone else to be harmed by this. And I think Frank is saying this, but he's not saying it in like a loud enough voice to really command the room. Instead, everybody's like panicking and just doing their own fleeing of the scene, probably into all corners of the house. And Frank is like trying to wrest control, but I would imagine quite ineffectively.
I actually will help with that because with Meet the Family, now that I've cleared it, I'll mark a box to create a small flashbang of saltpeter and sulfur within close range, enough to startle or distract anyone nearby, just to kind of loudly, pop, 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 just like firecrackers set off a loud sound to get everyone to shut the fuck up and listen to Frank. Or yeah, listen to Frank.
Yeah, I think in the chaos, the noise is just about enough. There's still some screams. Mercy Vanderkamp kind of does a little mock fate at the sound that everyone just hushes for a second, and their attention turns to Frank in the doorway.
Hey, everybody! This is a wonderful. And like Frank, his smile kind of stops midway. Let's just get inside, huh? And he cracks the door wider. Follow this way, take a left down the passageway up the stairs. Let's go up to the level where everybody's rooms are. Let's get ourselves sequestered up there. It should be a bit safer than down here.
Very nice. Yeah, there's kind of a stampede / procession as everyone kind of rushes up the staircase. I think you mentioned that you wanted to try and close the drawing room doors and hopefully barricade those behind you. Everyone kind of is hushed, listening, and you just hear louder that foghorn roar coming very clearly from behind those closed doors. And Montessa Vernon, the owner, just turns to the two of you and says, "Great, it's in the building now. Well, what do we do?"
Do you have a map of the floor plan, including any passageways that aren't as well advertised? My concern is that this is not going to stay in this room.
There's a few quiet servants' passageways from the old days of the hotel, yes. But how do we know it won't follow us down them? I don't think it reads maps.
We are going to ensure that it's not going to follow anyone, but I think people are safer in the servant quarters and tunnels than they would be out here.
All right. And she kind of turns, walks a little way down the corridor, and there's one of those beautiful ornate lampshades. She just gives it a classic Scooby-Doo mystery style tug, and there's the wallpaper just slits open and a door opens. And Montessa says, "Everyone, all right, come on down here. This will lead you into the cellars." God, I hope Peter's all right.
As people are like, passing by into the secret, tunnel, Nim gets, real close, like shoulder to shoulder up against Frank, and just in a very low voice whispers, "What did we get wrong? I don't understand."
Well, I suspect it's a fair amount. If everything was as we assumed, I don't. Well, his head did shatter against the wall. While that might be a kind of justice for the man, it's not exactly justice for this situation. I don't think.
Nim curses under his breath. So, whoever is responsible is still active, and now we are back at square one.
How sure are we that it's someone?
He narrows his eyes, not in doubt, but in questioning, prodding him to continue with what he's talking about.
Well, and he like kind of pulls back. Everybody else is being ushered down through the cellarway, and he just turns his back to them and turns toward Dr. Harrow for a second. What if our fundamental assumption was that somebody did this for a reason, and not that maybe overall something has been angered by something else up here?
Of course, that would make so much more sense. That's the simpler answer. You were very much blinded on that one.
Blinded by motive. Everybody here had a reason to kill the guy. Well, half the people, maybe 3/4. Anyway, but suffice to say that I don't think we were wrong in thinking that, except in so much as we were wrong for thinking that. But either way, I think we should turn our eyes maybe to what could have been aggravated here, rather than
Indeed.
try to find an individual mind behind it.
I think that this is a good plan. All right. Where do you propose we start?
Well, everybody's going down. I don't know. Maybe if we corral people towards where the boiler is, we might be able to keep things hot enough to keep whatever it is outside at bay for as long as that works. But we might have to do a little bit more personal investigation of areas that are less safe.
Indeed, I agree. There are a few locations that we have not yet gone to see. Namely, we have not yet gone to the roof where that ostentatious statue is and where the snows are ravaging. Perhaps there is something that can be seen from up there. Perhaps we can glimpse. Maybe we'll see the latecomer through the haze. I don't know. But the best thing I can think of at the moment is getting to a high place and trying to discern. Maybe we've missed something in the area. Maybe there's something here that we took for granted, but once viewed from above will be part of the pattern.
If we're barging outside in any respect, it may behoove us, and I know this. Bear with me. While I was left behind back in Malware Ward, I had a chat with the Minuteman or the god representing. It was a rather confusing experience, but I wonder if maybe some kind of direct interaction with this force might be able to help us determine the source of its anger. It also could end up with us dead and shattered in the snow, but I think it might be worth a shot.
I am all ears, and I am willing to take whatever you wish to do at face value.
Don't do that. That's a danger. I would not trust myself with that kind of responsibility. You really shouldn't. But I welcome criticism, is what I'm saying.
Nim puts a hand on Frank's shoulder and says, "Frank, in as long as I've known you, you have never provided something that is so detrimentally asinine as to becoming something I disagree with. I am a scientist. We succeed through failure. And if we are to fail, then I cannot imagine a better person I would like to fail with."
Frank is like oddly touched. And he like puts a hand, and he holds his hand out. Well, let's fail together then. No, let's actually succeed this time. I think we've done the failing bit.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I think very much as you've suggested, the guests and remaining staff members alike are crowded in the furnace. Poor Peter now has about 3 different posh people complaining that he's not shoveling coal correctly. He's just kind of putting up with it. Everyone is in there kind of sweating. Are you guys going to head down there first, or are you heading straight to the roof? What's the plan?
I think I'm good to go straight to the roof, unless, David, you have something you'd like to do down there.
I think Frank will bop down just to tell, is it Peter who's shoveling? Yeah, just to tell him, you only need to keep this room warm now. None of the rest of the building, let it get cold. Dr. Harrow and I will be up there. It might even be advantageous to give the thing a little bit more free reign. So just you keep these people warm down here. Don't push yourself too hard. We'll be back soon, hopefully with good news.
I'm relying on you, Frank. You remember that, don't you?
And Frank puts his hand on his shoulder. I'm going to do my best for you, I promise.
All right. All right. Come on, guys. Let's get this door closed. Leave the detectives to their detecting. And Montessa kind of just gives you, Frank, she remembers you. She used to work with you. And when you started investigating this case earlier this evening, she had a lot of faith in you. The look that she gives you now as she just kind of pushes the boiler room door closed is one of someone who fears that tonight she's about to lose everything. And you just hear the bolts draw across, and you're alone in the darkened basement corridors of the hotel.
Yeah, Frank looks at the door, hears the bolts thud into place. I will not dwell on idleness. My hands are made to serve. I will not dwell on idleness. My hands are made to serve. Okay. Gonna come back with good news. Good news. And Frank hurries up the stairs to follow Dr. Harrow.
Perfect. Well, I'll happily, if you're heading that way, say that moments later you find yourselves just stepping out through a loft hatch onto the snow-covered roof of Vernon's lodge. It is obviously lots of old tiles, eaved roof, so you have to be careful to watch your step. But I would just try and invent to paint the scene off the fly, because this is a lovely idea for a location. In the moonlight, you can see across the White Finger Mountains, across the ski slopes, and even further down beyond into the valleys and hills of the peninsula. What unexpectedly beautiful natural or technological sight is visible that takes your breath away in the dark?
I think Frank can see out to the maze behind the house. And from when you're down in the weeds of it, everything is just cold, unflinching wall, followed by cold, unflinching wall of these hedges covered in snow and ice. But from up here, you can see kind of the beautiful swirling patterns of it. And in the moonlight, catching in the snow and ice crystals, it's almost like a crystal maze. It catches the light, it shifts it, it casts it in these beautiful patterns of white and rainbow from the scattered light. It's really quite beautiful from up there.
There's a uniform beauty almost to the alpine trees, especially in the gloomy snowstorm haze, like this silhouetted kind of like art piece. I forget the actual term, like foreground, background, just like this really stark and very flat and simplistic plane of the darker trees, and then the trees get slightly lighter in the haze, and then just the white kind of sky that vanishes the horizon where the snow meets it. And there's almost this symmetry in nature here, not the kind of symmetry that you'd look at in a piece of architecture and admire, but the symmetry of nature, the symmetry of like the natural world, the same symmetry that applies to things like a nautilus spiral. There's a pattern at present in the very makeup of this place that is, when observed from on high, it's breathtaking.
Stunning. Thank you. Well, as the two of you stand here together, gazing out over these serene and gorgeous sights, what's the plan?
I think first Frank will just turn to Dr. Harrow, who's scanning the horizon. Do you see anything of interest? I'm also regretting leaving my scarf back downstairs.
Dr. Harrow squints on the horizon for anything of interest. Real Legolas looking right now.
I mean, you can roll if you want, or
I would love to. Yeah.
okay, cool. Just give me a good
good.
A good gather information roll based on you squinting across the darkness.
I would argue. I would argue insight, but I'm actually gonna argue focus, because it feels like it's less about, it's more about like scanning through, just like it's concentrating through the weather kind of thing.
Absolutely, and like keeping your footing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do I have disadvantage?
Let's take a look. What do you
have side effects may include?
Side effects may include. I mean, can you pitch me a great side effect that might impair you from squinting?
Can I? Yes. Do I want to? No. But I can impair a great side effect. I think the throbbing migraine that is currently pounding behind his nasal passages is really hard to make it focus and look at things in true detail.
I
And
think
also
that's perfect.
distracting.
That's a disadvantage. And I'm imagining
Yeah.
like Dr. Harrow kind of he's squinting so hard and then just like something goes in his forehead, like a vein that bursts, but in a really unnatural and worrying way.
Yeah, like he has like an eye that's beginning to hemorrhage. Like, ah, God, curse my devotion to the fiction. And me with basically no items to use. I'll just take the disadvantage and pray. Oh my fucking God, that's actually fantastic. Okay. That was 2 6s and a 5. So that is a 12.
12. What is happening tonight? Okay, love it. Let's take that moment to go back to our other 12, which was Vitria's style banishing Mother Asbestos and the followers of the Dreamers of Ease from the meeting. Vitria, do you want to tell us how that played out?
So everyone gets banished. I think it's one of those things where certain people are a disruptive influence. So the people that are willing to stay, the Dreamers of Ease that are willing, maybe like Brother Rebar and some of the more reasonable ones, anyone who's willing to stay, as long as we have quorum still, is able to stay. But anyone who's disruptive is including Mother Asbestos is ejected from the meeting. And I think basically the meeting, Nora sets the agenda for resolving the situation with phase 2, and the engineers and the surveyors present their points. And eventually it's as if phase 2 was always meant to be, and the sprawl was always meant to be the height that it is now. And Lucien Beton was always right to plan phase 2 because he definitely did.
Wonderful. And you are, of course, allowed an extra benefit since you rolled a 12. Given it was basically the end of the assignment. I'm gonna let you lead the way. Would you like a clue for this or another assignment? Would you like maybe to get a little object? I do have a couple of ideas on that front, but also happy to follow your lead.
I love the idea of an object.
Okay, well that might come into play then in a little while, but I think for now, Mother Asbestos just stares at you, stony-faced, for a moment, and then a slight limpness in her pose, as if she understands that something is happening here that's beyond her control. She watches as Brother Rebar and her Dreamers of Ease, having stood up for a moment, sensing that a fight was about to break up, just sit obediently back down, cross-legged, and listen to the meeting that plays out. And it's as if she knows that she's lost them. She's lost her people, she's lost the sprawl. And she just turns, her wings spreading out, and then she swoops away through the broken window and out of the building. The two sides listen to proposals. They seem incredibly straightforward and simple. Like no one can believe that they didn't think of this themselves, and everyone's just nodding firmly, going, "Yes, it's in the plans. In the plans, we can make this work." You can even see maybe Surveyor Munger and Brother Rebar kind of shake hands in a "we're going to work together as sensible folk from now on" way. And as the meeting draws to the close, there is a real sense of camaraderie amongst the remaining disciples of the two factions.
Because the power of the Watcher fades, it plays out suspiciously like a montage.
I love that. Yeah, very much like Surveyor Munger went on to become a leading executive in Slag King's Court. Everyone gets a little freeze frame and a subtitle that tells us how they did. Wonderful. I mean, that to me very much feels like the end of the Skyward Sprawl, unless the two of you have any more kind of like concluding actions you want to take here.
I've forgotten her name again. Hang on. This is in the assignment sheet. I would like to request, oh, we did not take notes on side character names. Okay.
Do you mean Novice
Yeah.
Timber, I think? Yeah.
Yeah, that Novice Timber and her parents find an accord that they aren't going to like get into an argument, that they'll be like, they're fine. They like families back together, they're fine.
Yeah, I imagine we might just see Sister Plate Glass, Brother Rebar, the two parents, just holding hands as they look down at Novice Timber and they say, "But daughter, it's all solved now. The sprawl will be fine. You can come back and join us. This is a beautiful future for us all in this tower." And Novice Timber just stares up at them and says, "I don't want to be here. This place isn't home to me. I'm glad you're happy, but I don't understand it, and I never will. I need to get out of here. I need to see the world. I need to make my own home." And the two parents just kind of look back at each other, quietly horrified that their daughter could ever imagine a home for herself outside of the sprawl. But then Sister Platecaster says, "But you'll come back on weekends." And Novice Timber just, her face spreads into a smile and she says, "Yeah, I can do that." I kind of come in for a hug, and she turns and looks back at the two of you and just gives you a nod of appreciation.
I think Vitria polishes her helmet and looks up with satisfaction at the roof of the lobby of the sprawl and says, "I think finally this building is something that is not hateful in the eyes of the Slag King." And she looks at Nora and says, I'm glad I listened to you, Nora. It would have been a great evil if we'd destroyed this place and killed everyone in it."
Well, we gotta save the wholesale slaughter for when it's necessary, right? I think as Nora's saying that, she's kind of rubbing her arm, because I still have a slashed arm as a condition. She's kind of rubbing her arm, like looking around at the two groups all working together and making friends, and someone's gotten at a chessboard probably and they're playing a game of chess. She's kind of looking around like, yeah, I think we did good here. No. Yeah. Let's slip out before something can go horribly wrong.
The best part is Nora. And she smiles and shows her the minutes, and it's about this high, and says, "Matt, what's his name? Vanderhorn, is it? He's gonna have to read it. He's gonna have to read the whole thing. It's in his contract. Revenge of the Custodians."
Awesome. I imagine just maybe a few minutes later as the two of you just slip out unnoticed in all the camaraderie and celebration through the lobby doors, through the barbed wire plaza that has been sealed off to protect the outside world from the sprawl. You make your way through there and return to your van. The soldier that you saw at the very start of the assignment in his gas mask, as you actually get close to him, you can maybe faintly hear music. He is listening to something on his headphones, and his radiation suit visor is all steamed up. He does not notice at all as you just sidle back through the barbed wire and leave again. However, as you approach the van, Vitria, your hands on the door, something does happen. You catch sight of something that's just floating lazily through the air towards you. It is a very large looking feather that has a strange metallic sheen to it. One final gift. And as it falls, and either you could, reach out impulsively and grab it or just let it land at your feet, you do hear the whisper of Mother Asbestos, who gave you her blessing once, in your head. And she just says, "We must be more than the plans they made for us. You will need to remember that by the end, Vitria." And perhaps for a moment, you just fancy you catch a slight shadow of something swooping high overhead in the sky. before it's lost in the clouds.
I think the point where the mark was daubed on her forehead begins to like violently itch for a minute, and she scratches at it until it starts to bleed as they get back in their vehicle.
Awesome. Thank you. That is a successful resolution to the Skyward Sprawl, folks. Very well done. I can't remember how it normally happens. Would you like to pick your rewards now or wait until the end?
It's, I think, end of session where the rewards come into
End
play.
of session.
Mm.
Then let's save the rewards. All right. I'd love to know, before we leap back to the other two, where are you two headed next? What's the plan?
Yeah, because we have a full slate, don't we? At the moment,
You will have
until next session.
another assignment coming in, yeah, but it is currently a full slate.
I imagine we may have arranged to meet back in Marrow Ward, or at least like at the edge of town, just because that's a place where we all know how to get to. And none of these people have cell phones, so we can't contact each other any other way.
It makes sense because, like, logically, we can't. I mean, it seems it strains micro. You know, like the fiction that we would be able to get to the hotel. That's not that kind of that kind of assignment. So I think if we'd all arranged to meet back at Marrow Ward to on the border of where the effect starts at Marrow Ward, that would make sense.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah, we will aim for that.
What I will pitch, the only way I could imagine that Nora and Vitria do come to Winter's Spite, to Vernon's Lodge, is if Nora employed the power of the Watcher to essentially do a like pan and wipe, and then the two of you are just there, and like it's just sort of like hand waved away how the two of you got there, very sitcom style. That I could say maybe, but I also think meeting up in the inevitable hour makes a lot of sense over an Award.
Fantastic. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, well, let's cut back then to up on the roof of Vernon's Lodge. Dr. Harrow squinting so hard. He has both popped a bit of a supernatural zip, but also he has actually done very well by rolling a 12. So Dr. Harrow will get a clue. And as per the rules, you can also, I think, not a conspiracy clue because you have zipped through them. We actually need to kind of catch up on the conspiracy storyline, but you're going to learn something fundamental about the conspiracy. So in terms of a clue, there's so many for this now. Sorry, I'm just double checking because this is make sure I haven't used up all of them. Not all of them, isn't. I think I'm going to make one up because none of these really fit the situation you're in. I think what you actually see as you look down is, in the moonlight, the snow of the ski slopes. You know, of course, that there were two staff members who were killed out in the car park, now Ray Ghibli. And actually, as you kind of peer out, Dr. Harrow, what you can see faintly in the snow is a kind of shape. It appears very much, and you're just going to make out what could be body parts, just sort of scattered limbs, heads, torso of the three dead people out in the snow have been arranged into what is very clearly a prayer mark of some kind. Just ripping wholesale from Game of Thrones here with the spiral that turned out not to mean anything. But it appears that the latecomer has arranged these body parts that are frozen into a ice sculpture object of worship, a shape of your choosing, out in the snow. So that's your clue. And I think something fundamental about the conspiracy, as you are gazing at this grisly shape out in the snow, your attention is then broken because far off to the northwest in the direction of Mauer Ward, the night sky suddenly just lights up in a small but furious burst of flames. Almost, it looks like an explosion or a gas fire. It's a sort of a hideous blue fire that just roars up for a moment and then vanishes once more. Something very bad, you know, has happened in Mauer Ward.
Anything catch your eye out there?
Yes. A lot of bodies. A lot of bodies. It's a prayer mark. It's a prayer mark. Of course. I don't know how we missed this before. We were too occupied with the other theories. This is... God, I feel like a fool.
Frank gently patting you on the shoulder. That's okay if you feel like a fool. Then I'm whatever's below that.
He shakes off and, like, you know, hugging himself because shivering from the cold, and says,
Okay, I think that is all we're going to find, and also something very, very bad is happening in, well, elsewhere. Let's finish this up. I think I have an epiphany coming on.
I love those. Sounds great. You said there's a prayer mark down and out there. I don't suppose we need to go and check that out, do we?
I think that might be part of what will be ultimately the solution to all of this. I am already beginning to see a new picture form.
And Frank reaches into one of his breast pockets and pulls out the finger that we have, the frozen finger with the ring. And he says, well, I wonder if we weren't too far off that this does relate to all of that.
he nods very firmly.
Well, night's not getting any younger. I'll grab my scarf on the way. Let's get back out there.
Wonderful. And I imagine, not to rip straight from The Shining, but just I'm imagining kind of through the snow, your two tiny figures, we just see almost like snowplow, like shuffling forwards from the hotel, further and further into the darkness, leaving that aura of comforting light behind. And then all once, yeah, you are out on the slope in the darkness. The moonlight is the only light above, and you can just make out the sinister creaking of the ski lifts above you, providing a steady, pendulous rhythm as you make your way forward. And then you are there, standing in the heart of this grotesque ice sculpture made of the conjoined bodies of the Lightcomer's victims.
You weren't joking. This is to be expected, I guess.
We've been so focused on the inside of the hotel that we've neglected very much the evidence that was outside our very doorstep. This is painting everything in a much different light.
And he just kind of, like, you know, taking, like, the finger, just kind of, like, holds it up to probably a couple of hands or two and just nods to himself. I don't know, David, now that we have an extra clue, you want to try a second crack at it?
That's what I was thinking. I think it's
Yeah.
time to
I think it's time for us
theorize.
to theorize, yeah. Ready to answer this question again.
You were teasing it so well. If you didn't have anything, I was very impressed.
Yeah, no, I
sound
was...
so.
I have nothing prepared, but I'm happy to do it on the spot. I definitely wanted to cinematically make it feel that way, though.
Yeah.
I
Love
mean,
it.
like, just at the very top, writing what David and I were immediately thinking with this finger. So clearly, this finger belongs to one of the bodies that are part of this prayer mark. I mean, that those two connect, and how they'll connect to the wider picture, I don't know yet. But at least start off, like, you know, that is from, I think we thought originally it was a talisman for summoning this thing. I think that part of the theory is totally incorrect, or controlling it, but like whatever that finger is from, it came from one of these bodies. So it sounds like, David, because of what Frank said, that that it's like there is no like perpetrator. There's not a human perpetrator. It's just the latecomer's like motivation. It's just like it has a goal that it's pursuing, and we misinterpreted. Okay, yeah, I'm cool with that.
I've got a cornerstone for the theory.
Hell yeah.
Revolving still around this finger in the ring, because like my idea is like something aggravated this, right? In the same way, not to lean too far into The Shining, but like that's all part of that mythos as well, right? So similarly, I think that one of our people, I don't know who yet, I haven't figured out how it all integrates the narrative, but I think that one of the bodies in this prayer mark is a much older one. One of them is the body of Vanderkamp, Senior. And the reason why the finger was fetched,
or Vernon, you mean?
Yeah, sorry. You're right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Vernon Senior. The previously years ago dead Vernon, creator of the lodge. And he like went missing on the mountain, right? And so I think like he's like maybe the centerpiece of this prayer mark that is being put together. And the reason why somebody disturbed this was because that ring that is on the finger is like Vernon's signet and could be used to like seal official documents in the family's name. And that was being, because like I think there's an angle of somebody was doing something here, but rather than them intentionally utilizing or intentionally invoking this visitor, instead it was very much inadvertent. They saw this here, they disturbed this, and now everyone is dealing with repercussions.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense, because okay, if you think about like the fact that Vernon disappeared under mysterious circumstances, he was probably like taken by the latecomer, you know, years and years and years ago. This saint has been on the mountain for a long time, and even its name, the latecomer, I mean, you can even infer that there is like a sense of like getting delayed due to like weather and stuff like that. They kind of like the way that winter gets in your way and like obfuscates the path. Sounds like this thing has been here for a while. I think that because of what you just added with the ring being for official documents, someone here had found that prayer circle, recognized Vernon, snapped off the finger, and drew the full enraged ire of the latecomer, because I mean they took it with them. So in a sense, we still have this human perpetrator who's not controlling the latecomer, because this is still the person who tried to like shut Nim and Peter in the boiler room and trap them there, and they dropped this ring. So whoever is responsible for this wanted to have the official signet ring, wanted to like, you know, they accidentally dropped it. That would make much sense.
That could still be Ray Ghibli. Like we had a solid theory for like why he was trying to manipulate the Vernon family in order to access the lands and stuff. So it could be that he inadvertently brought this on, and now it's up to us to do something about it.
Unless it wasn't. Wasn't.
We could. I was gonna say we could literally finger someone else. You know, we could point the finger.
Well, because I'm thinking about the So we had already previously used that for a clue about how the adjudicator had the piece of paper with like a family tree on it, right? And we used that before for just kind of like the bloodlines and like the property ownership, and it could still be Ray Ghibli, but I think there's something possibly like really interesting in here with like another person who is not doing it for the reasons we thought.
What if Montessa Vernon is an illegitimate child?
I was thinking Montessa.
Yeah. And Montessa found him out here and needed to reclaim it in order to maintain her rightful ownership. And so without that could not prove. Maybe the adjudicator was bringing up those claims against her.
Yes,
part of the reason that they were there.
That the situation between the adjudicator and the commissioner involving some children who like survived that whole ordeal could have, that easily ties into this as well, because there could have been a ground there. But this would basically point the fact that Montessa is like basically has a dirty little secret and has been trying to cover it up, because oh my God. Maybe that's why, I mean, like, obviously it's just as innocent as saying like Lenora had the article, but what if what if Lenora was beginning to suspect that something was kind of wrong here? Because wait, I'm trying to remember what was the context about like the children who survived there's a situation involving the adjudicator and the commissioner that like what did the children survive?
So
Do you remember what that
we
was
had
about?
spun it that there was like some people who had died on the mountain. There's like a car that burned, or it was burned afterwards to like hide the evidence of the bodies. I think like basically there was dangers on the mountain that they were trying to hide, and some people survived. I think that's kind of how we'd spun it at the time, but we could literally spin that however we want because we were wrong before.
I think the children clue when it came was just literally Commissioner Vanderkamp kind of feeling very guilty because Frank had put pressure on him and he muttered something about say sorry to the children. So it could be literally anything.
True, very true.
One extension I
Ooh.
think I have for Montessa Vernon is I think I didn't go hard enough when I said illegitimate. No. Vernon had no successor. Montessa Vernon is a complete
fraud.
outsider. She's a
Complete
total fraud who who saw the opportunity. Maybe she was just somebody staying at the lodge at the time, and saw the opportunity and like took over as if she was, and has so far survived by making her own paper trail. But like other people were aware of that. Maybe the commissioner and or the adjudicator like knew that, and like the reason why they were celebrating up here was because like she's been in their pocket for years because they know this dirt on her.
Yeah, James is already getting ahead of me there. The car, those burned bodies, she killed those people. They were related to, she just, some people discovered their secret or stood in the way. She killed them.
They were the other people who were there. So she was there when Vernon Sr. died, when he disappeared. And they were the other people at the lodge at the time. And in order to cover her tracks of taking over, she just killed them.
Wait, what if Vernon's lodge, what if Vernon did at one point like run and like an orphanage kind of situation, right? And the Montessa and the bodies in the snow out there are all those original like Vernon's kind of like foundling kids that I don't know, like there's like this angle
Montessa is at this point the only remaining child who survived from that because she killed the other ones and took over Vernon's
and all
property.
This chatter, and I'm seeing what Rhyme's putting down, and I'm getting excited. All this chatter about him not having a legitimate having a child, he actually did. It's Lenora. That because in true, very fictionally like stereotypical fashion, I don't know, Vernon had an affair with one of the staff members, and that ended up being Lenora.
I love
and that would explain why she has the article, because like kind of starting to look into that. And oh my god, that's really cool.
That's so freaking good. Just to kind of keep a check on things, I believe the only two clues you have not included in that are the bag filled with bone-colored powder. Yes, Ray Ghibli's checked another side character, and the temple
of the Horbitten Hand. Yeah.
I think Ryan suggested that Ray the check was because Ray was paying Lenora because he had discovered that Lenora was the actual rightful person, and he's essentially been giving her financial and legal support for her to. I don't know if it's like fully come. Maybe there's only whiffs of the legal battle right now for Montessa, but he's been the one supporting her, like helping her out with that, and so like he's been paying her to then like apply that pressure. Then could be.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think that would, because even though we did kind of establish that he had, did write a check to this, we previously said like the whole thing about like Vanderkamp about how like, the bone colored powder was a shredded up check. As fun of a detail as that was, I think for the strength of this theory, we can just as easily say that it's some kind of like drug, and he fucking takes it to like calm down. And because he said like he meant the comment about the children, I think whatever happened involving those children like genuinely shook him, and it was something really bad. And I think what if the bodies out in the snow were just like they're all like the burnt bodies of the children, and Montessa was the sole survivor. but like she was the one who actually like killed them. And that way it would be like Vanderkamp, it's just a drug he takes because the horrors of that whole like original case like haunt him. I don't know.
Let's see. It
Unless
was
you
in
have
Randy
something
Vanderkamp's
stronger.
room, bag filled with bone colored powder. I mean, I don't know if we have to remove it being like a broken down check from Ray
Okay, we can
Ghibli.
keep it. Yeah, we can keep it.
I think like him trying to pay off Vanderkamp. I mean, oh, you know what? Maybe that is how Montessa has grown somewhat wise to the situation. Is that Ray Ghibli went to go pay off Vanderkamp, who he didn't know had this relationship with Montessa, like that they had worked together for years. And so he stepped on a landmine there by accident.
Ray Ghibli was back at when he found out that like stuff was going on with Lenore. He was back, as they said about like he was backing her claim, encouraging her, and that it would be that would still explain the Temple of the Horror Bitten Hand thing, because like Ray Ghibli's involvement with wanting to like do the land development and all that, in that he discovered the relationship, found the truth, and began to pursue it. And
then his
Montessa,
only mistake in the process was going to Vanderkamp at all, because then that tipped off Montessa, who then, in order to get her own legal standing, went to go and steal the ring off of the body, and then that's caused this whole situation.
Yep.
We've got our smoking finger.
You've got it. All right, I believe that is now 8 clues. 8 clues for a 7 complexity question. Do you want to go for it?
You want to roll 1 dice each like last time?
That went so well last time, but sure, we've been all in on this one. Oh boy.
Come on. Oh, that's a 6 for me.
Okay. It's a 5 from me.
Total what 12. Is happening? My goodness. Oof. Okay, so a 12. As a reminder, the answer is absolutely correct. The events are also going to be connected to the conspiracy. Someone from the conspiracy will reveal themselves to the custodians while they're pursuing the opportunity. That is so cool. I'm going to have to think about how this now plays out. Shall we make this our midpoint break now, if that's okay, and then come back to it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, Dr. Harrow and Frank, as you were walking out in the snow of the darkened ski slopes, Vernon's lodge, its window still lit up, considerable distance behind you, the two of you came upon this theory about who was really responsible for the latecomer and the deaths that have taken place here tonight. And obviously the crunch of your footsteps on the snow, occasionally the snap of a twig, it almost takes a moment before you hear the distinctive of the hammer of a revolver being pulled back behind you. And then you hear a very familiar voice. Montessa Vernon just says, I thought it was better if we had a conversation about how things have gone, because I don't know if you agree, Frank, but I think everything's rather got out of hand. And I'm afraid what I thought would be the solution to all of our troubles up here may now have to be something rather drastic. And you turn and she is there kind of in her ball gown for the party still, and she is just pointing the revolver at both of you. In one hand, she clutches a withered, frostbitten hand with the signet finger missing, the skin scratched with prayer marks. You were right in some way, but she appears to be holding the controller for the latecomer. Montessa Vernon says, now, I'm not paid by the government, but I've come up with a theory of my own. Here's what I think happened. Peter, a convicted criminal, angry with his lot in life and determined to take it out on the rest of us, got free, killed the staff and guests in Vernon's lodge, and then burnt it to the ground. And maybe just for kind of a second, white fur coat for Montessa, Ryan suggested, absolutely kind of to keep herself warm. And she says, Peter burnt the hotel to the ground. There were no survivors, although, of course, maybe 1 or 2 bodies might never be found. And maybe we just cut away for a moment to kind of everyone else is in the boiler room hammering on the doors, which Montessa has now just locked them in as she did before to the 2 of you. She says, of course, perhaps the owner will be found out in the snow and she'll be taken to hospital. She'll recover, and maybe in time the insurance on this old place will be worth all of her suffering and pain. What do you think? Does that sound like a plausible theory to the 2 of you, detectives?
Well, it's something, and Frank turns to look at Dr. Harrow. It's something we could probably take back to our superiors without much trouble. I figure it would resolve the situation here one way or another.
Do you know what my least favorite part of people like you are?
I imagine you're about to tell me.
I imagine you listen for no other reason than it's a final laugh before you pull that trigger of yours. Have you ever held a gun before, Montessa? Have you ever shot someone? I know you've killed people, but have you ever shot someone?
Yes.
Hmm.
I shot my father in the leg. I wanted to see him crawl before he died.
He nods. Not judgmentally, just nods. And as he's speaking, he's taking like very slow steps towards her, and he's saying, I have no doubt in my mind that you could shoot me dead before I'd even have the chance to try and disarm you. Even if I managed to lunge myself at you to smack the gun away, quite honestly, Montessa, I do think that you would get a shot off, and it would be very bad for me. So I want you to be very certain that you are going to kill me if that gun goes off, because there's nothing I can do to take it out of your hand, and I'm not going to try to do that at all. But I prefer people to really look me in the eyes when they decide that their best choice in life is to hold a gun in front of them, all in the name of power and money. All of this death, this chaos, meddling with the powers of this latecomer, dabbling with this saint, it's all just because you don't want to give up a false title you've become rather comfortable? Really? Messing with such divine powers at the cost of possibly even your own life in the crossfire is worth it for money? Is that really how you feel?
She takes a step back as you kind of begin to move towards her. She just kind of holds the gun up more closely towards you and says, you are very cold-blooded, aren't you? A kindred spirit, perhaps. Not like Frank here. Frank would always put up with what he's given. He always does as he's told. That's why he was a joy to work with. But you and I, we don't just accept the lot we're given. It wasn't about the money. It was about what I deserved. It was about fairness. Do you understand that?
I am very familiar with fairness and people getting what they deserve. He like slowly lowers his hands and as if to be like, say, I'm not going to do anything funny. I'm not going to attack you. He just says, Montessa, I have had a great deal of people in my life come and go. People much like yourself who believe that they are deserving of something and that they will be given what they deserve. I am not to stand in the way of what you deserve. And slowly he's like reaching up and like holding open his coat to see. He's like, I don't have a gun. I don't have any weapons on me. He's just like doing that and just being like, and he's like, if I'm going to die out in the cold, and he's taking off his jacket and just kind of like setting it to the side. He's showing that nothing holstered, nothing hidden. He's like, he's getting closer. He just says, then at least have the courtesy to do it point blank so you don't miss. And like he'll like take her hand like very slowly, like he's trying to like get like he's getting real close to her and like lifting the cold muzzle of the gun up against his forehead, just like really off-putting. And he wants to do this because he's hoping, and I'm hoping, that this is so strange and puts her off just long enough that as he takes a deep final inhalation of breath, he exhales a cloud of poisonous gas in her face. Using Meet the Family, breathe out a small cloud of poisonous gas, which quickly dissipates, wanted to get right up in her face in order to do that.
I adore it. Okay, so you might be surprised to hear this is a somewhat risky move. So this
Yeah,
is
you
a
don't say.
veiled
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail illusion of there?
Oh, that she's gonna shoot me. I'm gonna get shot. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Mhm.
I love it. Please go ahead and roll if you want to commit to this.
I do. And I'm going to say that in like mini flashback, I'm marking my lead line box tightly locked that I've had since the beginning. We don't know what's been in there, just that we didn't want it was locked away in a lead box to not be affected by anything. I think we saw him prior to this encounter with Montez after they had discovered the prayer circle or prayer mark. He had like knelt down in the snow, took a key from around his neck and put it in the lock. And I'm actually going to like segue now into the verse I feel like this is a pretty good time to do that. We use the transition of the box being unlocked and open to do a, from our perspective, inside a box being opened on a uniformed official, not at all in a snowy environment. My verse was, oh God, let me find it. A flashback to a time you were confronted with the fact that sacrifices are necessary for a god must feed. We see this like firefighter like type official pulling something out of this box, and there is a vast inferno that is eating a building right now in the middle of this part of the city. It's cordoned off by officials. They are trying to contain the fire, and there's a crowd of onlookers, and one of them is Nim, younger, not a little older than a teenager, but not really a man. Kind of like watching this blaze from afar and watching with confusion, because they're not putting fire out with water. They're assembling people. There are officials, CLS officials, who are bringing together equipment, and like a truck arrives and the back opens, and manacled people like step out of it, and it's kind of being explained to him from the side of what's going on, and what he'd later find out, that some fires you put out with the usual method. Sometimes you'll put it out with water, and the really bad ones, maybe you'll put it out with sand, but some fires are so devastatingly large that you need to appeal to the powers that be to ensure that a fire so bad as that will not happen again in this area for some time. And the way they do that is by a sacrifice, a prolonged death, a scientifically developed method that is both a fire retardant and a way of honoring even the Saint Electric, who her origins as a fire god, though largely forgotten, are still honored in some ways. These prisoners are outfitted with very almost like saw like kind of like head mechanisms, but they have like tubes and slots in them, and they get these like ampoules of some dark reddish brown gas inserted into them, vials, ampoules of bromine gas that attach to this like tube network that fits over their mouth. And they send these men into the burning building, and as the fires break the ampoules, the gas sucks into their
into their lungs and their mouth, filling their body with this bromine gas, bromine being a very good fire retardant. It's by no means enough to put out a fire. It's not designed to put out a fire. It's designed to make these people's body burn a lot harder and longer than they normally would, as a long-term sacrifice to ensure that this god is fed and that the buildings don't burn for quite some time.
Incredible. Thank you. From
It's
burning
all roll.
buildings to, yeah, please roll. I mean, you could argue for this for focus or presence, couldn't you? So whichever you prefer.
I'm gonna argue, yeah, focus just fictionally, because I was being very slow, deliberate, not trying to raise any alarms. Okay, that is a 10.
10.
Mhm.
Tell me what happens.
The cold of the gun, presses against his forehead as Montessa's brow furrows slightly, as if she's speaking to a madman, and that she's a little taken aback by how simple this is. But she looks at him with that kind of glance of, "Are you serious?" And then her eyebrows go up, and she just kind of shrugs, and she looks at Frank with that look of, "Okay, I guess this is what he wants." And as her finger shifts to go towards the trigger, he takes this deep breath and he exhales as this cloud of dark brownish red gas comes out of his lungs, stark against the light of the hotel in the blizzard, and goes right into her face before dissipating. And she immediately begins to cough and sputter, and her eyes begin to water and burn, almost unconsciously. She drops the gun to begin clawing at her face, gasping at her throat, feeling like she's choking, tugging at a collar that is not at all the cause of what she's experiencing, gasping, and I think she falls back onto the snow, wheezing, as Nim very coldly just looks down at her and watches her slowly suffocate to death before he just kneels down and takes her gun and tucks it into the belt of his pants.
It's awesome. I love it. I'm gonna give her a bit more than that, because I think maybe
Sure.
she's gonna kind of start trying to crawl away as she gasps and coughs, and maybe what could very well be her eyeballs just oozing out down her face. And she just kind of tries speaking into the earpiece, goes, Joe, I need you to get me out of here. We had a deal, Joe. Are you there? Are you there, Joe? And just kind of falls to one side as she just dies in the snow between the two of you. The horbidden hand itself just still clutched in her grasp.
He doesn't turn around, and just for extra cold-blooded details, as she was crawling away, Nim was just very slowly keeping pace with her, just walking alongside her instead of just watching down at her. And he doesn't turn around when she goes still. He just kind of straightens his back out slightly and just says to Frank, with his back to him, just says, "Go get the people out of the boiler room, Frank."
Yeah, with quick but kind of jerky footsteps, Frank walks up behind Dr. Harrow, reaches down and pulls the frozen hand from Montessa's dead grasp, and kind of gently affixes the missing finger to the hand that they had previously collected, and then hands it out to Dr. Harrow. As
he spins around and be like, "At what point?"
I'm using still and silent servant,
Nice.
as Frank has been quiet in the background of this entire scene. As soon as Montessa showed up, and once Dr. Harrow pulled focus, we flash back and see Frank with kind of the prayer mark in between, pulling out a copy of himself, patting them on the head, and then sneaking off back through the forest towards the lodge to go and free the people from the basement. So we flash over there, and Frank, of course, Montessa had already given him the key ring with all the keys to everything in the lodge. So even though she's locked them down there in the boiler room, we see Frank run down the stairs, flip through keys, try a few of them, finally get the right one, unlock it, pull it open with a wave of heat that gushes out, and you hear the rattling of the boiler pipes. He waves for everyone to get out of there before anything too dangerous happens. And Peter is there. Of course, Peter can't leave. He, gestures down to the anklet, and you can see like the dwindling stack of coal in the corner that's been getting lower and lower. Peter's own timeline growing shorter, as once that runs out, it's his life on the line. And Frank, like a knowing look passes between the two of them, and Frank says, "Put in those last couple of shovels. I'll be right back." And he runs upstairs, and you hear like a dragging thud, 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 as Frank from the kitchen brings down the frozen body of Adjudicator Groan. And he drags it over to the boiler room, and he reaches down and he says, "These things can't stay unfastened for long." But he undoes the clasp of the leg unit on Peter, and instead slaps it around the leg of Adjudicator Groan and throws him into the furnace.
I didn't once believe, not even for a moment, I didn't think you could do this. I didn't think you would.
You deserve better than this. I know none of us end up where we are in life untainted, but you could have a life out there doing something better for someone else than shoveling coal.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Hey, watch me run. And he kind of claps you on the shoulder, turns, and jogs away down the darkness. You see he maybe opens up that same secret passage, ducks away, and is gone.
And Frank kind of stands satisfied in that moment for a minute, and then he turns back as like the knob on the boiler is like, as this like fuel is the human fuel when provided is quite the potent addition. And Frank nervously looks at like the several heaping shovelfuls that were tossed in there plus the body, and he's like, he looks like nervously at the different knobs and levers. They had, of course, earlier arranged those to cut off the air to the house. So now this is just heating this room, and things are reaching very dangerous temperatures very quickly. And Frank's like, everybody! And Frank runs out of the room to try to get everybody to leave the house immediately, as this thing just might blow.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, and I think we might kind of cut to the outside of the Vernon's Lodge, the grand entrance where everyone is kind of gathering out, looking at the plumes of smoke rising from the chimney. The hotel is not burning, but definitely the boiler is in dangerous territory. Leonora, the waitress, kind of comes out, Frank, and obviously had quite a fraught moment with her in the kitchen. But she just stares at you for a moment and then gives you an honest, heartfelt hug. And she just kind of shakes her head and laughs at the fact that you all got this in one piece. The Vanderkamps are kind of bickering outside, going, "Well, shouldn't there be a helicopter to pick us up? We're going to freeze to death out here. What? Frank, please, Frank, could someone please tell us what's going on?"
Well,
sorry.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, how long do you have?
I suppose that means we're not going to really understand what happened here. Still, at least it seems to be over. Are you okay, Frank? Frank Palanche, the skier, he's looking rather pale, and something is off about his skin. And he just goes, "Yeah, I'm okay. It was very hot in that boiler room. I think I just need to be out in the fresh air for a while." And far away in the darkness, Peter just kind of takes one look back at the hotel and the tiny figures below, and then continues running out into the snow.
He wasn't wearing any shoes. I hope he'll be all right.
I think that is definitely an awesome resolution to Winter's Spite. Well done, both of you. So that is 2 assignments down in 1 session. Okay. I think it's all right. Let's just quickly cut from that largely heartwarming scene to Vitria and Nora. You are maybe a mile out of Mara Ward when your van comes slowly, very slowly, to a halt because the road ahead of you is blocked. An overturned lorry bearing the face of grinning Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth, holding up the breakfast cereal to his gaping mouth, has been overturned and is blocking the road. Ahead of the scene of devastation, the driver nowhere to be seen. A deck chair has been set up, and a very large man in what look like faded, ragged remnants of combat fatigues is sitting on the deck chair, helping himself to what appears to be some dry cereal out of the box.
Vitria calls up. This seems like an awful lot of effort for some cereal, sir. What are you doing on this road? Did you crash this truck? Is it your truck? What's happening here?
He doesn't look up. He just kind of keeps eating his cereal as if he hasn't heard you. Who amongst you has the highest insight? Let me quickly check. Vitria has 1. Nora has 1. I'll put the question to one or both of you then. The question is, you suddenly become very aware that you are in grave danger. What do you notice that makes you believe this?
Sounds like a Nora question because like she'd have the chance to notice it more.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to try and tie this into the comedy tragedy masks turning to dust. Because I think she noticed that like way back when they got into the van, like she'd heard a crack and picked up some of the masks, and she's kind of just let the dust crumble into her bag. But part of it has like spilled out of the bag, and I think she notices that the particles of dust are kind of rising in like, well, when she kind of puts her hand nearby, it's like rising heat. And I think she just frowns at it, but if we were to see like below the van, there's a pile of leaves that's now slowly blowing away to reveal what could be letting off heat. I want to just say like an explosive, but I don't think that's going to be letting heat off. Maybe it's I think there's like a pothole that has opened up, that's kind of revealing a pipe that's carrying steam like that's carrying steam through the earth to be pumped towards. On our left, I suppose there's a I'm going to use air quotes again, a farm for generating geothermal electricity. And this pipe that's carrying steam has been very carefully blocked, and it's now beginning to expand and let off steam, and it's about to explode. Ugh, that was
interesting.
tortured.
No, that's good. So I guess the idea is maybe if the van drives over it, that could be enough to set off to collapse the pipe and cause an explosion, is what we're saying. Is that the gist?
Yeah, with that, like, it's been blocked already, so it's primed to explode. And if we stay here for too long, we're gonna get caught in that.
Got it. Yeah, I think you absolutely note this. And as if seeing that you've clocked it, the very large man raises his head, and he's got long silver hair, a silver ragged beard, and he says, in a very deep, growling, leonine voice, "Better come out and have a talk. You don't have long."
There are simpler ways to get our attention, you know. We do have a bureau liaison office. You could contact the bureau directly. This is a very infantile way to get our attention.
He smirks and he says, "Infantile. Maybe, but I like to show what I'm capable of. Will you come and talk, Vitria, Nora?"
I think
Do we get cereal? We're quite hungry, you know. It's been a long journey.
He genuinely just smiles at that and says, "Come help yourselves. Brothers and sisters in arms, get a share of the spoils."
I think Nora kind of puts her foot on the gas, like accelerates the like 5 meters between them and the old man, and kind of just stops like a hand's breadth away from his face, and then gets out of the van. It's like, okay, talk.
He does not move an inch, but he definitely just looks up at you with a little approving smile and says, "You see, Vitria? Infantile's fun, isn't it, Nora?"
Has its moments. I've also been told I respond well to bribery.
I knew I liked you. Well, this is nice meeting face to face. I'm just only sorry, really, that it's come to this, because you might have gathered since you started operating in this area, there's been a bit of a miscommunication. Happens in government, doesn't it? Maybe someone gets the wrong end of the stick. Sometimes the message doesn't get through, and sometimes 2 teams are assigned to the same spot. Pain in the arse, isn't it?
Well, you certainly look unhinged and undisciplined enough to be a custodian, but I don't recognize you. Where are you from? What organization do you report to? State your credentials.
Whoa, you have to put up with this in the van all the time, do you, Nora? I am Lieutenant Joe Lynch, formerly of the Peninsulan Armed Forces, now operating on a freelance basis. As for my department, me and he just kind of gestures to the tree line around him. Me and the lads, we don't answer to the Bureau like you do. No, we answer to a higher power. You see, the legislatures, they thought it might be better to have a team in place for tackling high-end threats efficiently and with extreme prejudice, because, you know, you clean up merchants and the custodians might not be doing as well as you ought to be. So here we are, and here you are.
You haven't told us what you want yet. You're just being very clever and showing that you know our names. I work with a lot of people that think that knowing someone's name gives them power. It doesn't. It doesn't give you anything. It just makes you another useful idiot.
Indulge me. I'm I'm a little bit older, as you might have noticed. I've been through a lot. Sometimes my thoughts wander. In my line of work, there's rivals, and a rival is a threat. And then there's comrades, and if you're a comrade of mine, we work together, we take a share of the spoils together. We're a team. Do you understand me? So, you know, like the kids say, you're with us or against us, is what I'm saying. So to get to the point, Vitria, of what I want, you're operating in our territory, so I want you to work for us. When you have assignments like this, when your little bureau sends you a message about some god business happening out in the sticks, you can go, scout it out for us, but once you've taken a look, you call us in, we deal with the problem, we take the pay, we take the credit, and you can be custodians, you can clean up after us. Do that and you'll get a share of the spoils. How does that sound?
You do understand the contracts we signed, right? If you know as much as you like to think that you do, you know what's in those contracts, in the sub-clauses and the sub-clauses inside the sub-clauses. We can't help you. It would literally be the death of us.
I mean, that's your problem, not mine, isn't it? But if you're survivors, if you're clever, you should be able to deal with that, I reckon. What do you think, Nora? Do you care so much about contracts and subcontracts like Vitria does?
I think that I'd like to know what higher power it is you're answering to before I make any other decisions.
Like I said, the legislatures. A sub-clause and a sub-clause of a law that was passed earlier this year were commissioned.
Nora kind of smiles, but it's also a snarl. And she says, "It's not the type of power I was talking about. If you're saying that you can handle the type of things that we usually get assigned, you've got a god or two on your side. Who are they?"
A god more, thanks to you. Mara Ward is now under our protection, and I have to say, while you were all pissing about up and down the country, you missed out on a real prize here. The god we've got, it's going to be very, very useful. Some of the boys, we've only just started figuring out what we can do with it. But me, I'm a little bit agnostic. Whatever gives me power, now that's a god I can worship. So why should I have to choose? And he kind of just bares his great tattooed forearms, and you can indeed see there are any number of prayer marks just tattooed on both of them.
And Nora perhaps recognize one of the prayer marks.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm gonna suggest that kind of maybe it's a small one, like on the back of one of his knuckles. He's got a mark that's also similar to a closed eye, though instead of with the dagger that we've seen before, it's got in front of it a rose with very, very sharp thorns. And that's a mark of, I don't know if I want to call her Mama May I or Mother May I. But she's one of the military gods of Nora's youth, who is the god that they pray to when there have been civilian casualties, accidental or on purpose, asking for forgiveness rather than permission. And this is a god that people pray to because of carelessness or cruelty. So she sees this prayer mark and she knows that this is not a man to be trusted.
I love it. I love Mother May I as the name of this god. That's so cool.
I think I can add another one, which is that he has a sort of burn of a brand of No Mercy for Cowards, which is a god of deserters, and that basically shows that at some point he's been deserted the military and been caught and captured again.
Adore that. Thank you. Yeah, we can definitely add both of those. I think since we prompted this, now might be a good time to say that Lieutenant Lynch just sort of waves a hand softly and says, "By the way, I thought about time the lads joined us." And through the trees, you just hear the crunch of feet, and several more silhouetted figures move in on either side of the road, almost surrounding you. The mercenaries surrounding Lynch are like him, hard-bitten, scarred, each of them marked with various military tattoos and prayer marks of legal and illegal deities. Some of them even appear physically hallowed or demi-human. Open to everyone, describe one member of your rival's retinue and the god they appear to be worshipping.
Oh, well, I guess I'll have to do this one. There is a tall member, kind of like a bit of a beanpole, like long limbed, kind of like an oblong face, can be found usually just like, smoking a cigarette, wearing a road worn kind of, like lorry driver's jacket, and their slacks have some oil stains on them as well, and they have a little visored cap to keep the sun out of their face, and they on their back of their jacket is a logo that says the Sacred Couriers of the Relentless Rider.
Yes, incredible. Anyone else fancy doing one?
Yeah, I think that one of them is a shorter, squatter fellow. He's wearing a leather vest without any shirt or anything underneath. You can see a series of prayer marks and tattoos over his shoulders and arms. He's got a series of prayer marks in like the shape of almost like the mark of a slap across one cheek and down part of his neck. And he has a cigarette in his lips, but he's not currently smoking it. And you see a hand protrude from his chest and pull out his lighter and then light it for him while his other arms are gently rested at his side. I think this is a lost, a follower of another follower of the Helping Hand, but pursuing a much different path than Frank.
Oh, I love that intrigue. Thank you.
I think there's one who is standing near the front of the group, but also your eyes sort of skip over them. They're difficult to see, but if you were able to focus on them, you would see an older, more worn, more scarred version of that eldest student in Nora's old class, the student who got a gun without any bullets. And they've shaved their head and it's covered in prayer mark tattoos. And in the center of their forehead, they've got the closed eye with the dagger in front of it. And they are primarily a follower of, I have a name for this god as well, of Sister Sly, the god of spies and assassins. So this is the person who could be sent to follow us, and we wouldn't see them coming until they had put a knife in our back.
Love it. Can I ask, does Nora recognize him, and does he recognize Nora?
I'm gonna roll 2 dice. First, okay. Even numbers, yes, they recognize the other person. First one's going to be for Nora. Second one is going to be for her old classmate. Ooh, okay. Neither of them recognize the other. I got a 1 and a 5.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely no recognition between the two of you. Lovely. So we got a tall beanpole of the Relentless Rider, a short, squat, leather vest wearing follower of the Helping Hand, and this difficult to see spy who is a rather scarred version of someone that Nora knew from her past. James, anything from you?
Yeah, and I think the last one kind of is basically looks like a musician, but like in leathers and spikes with like, you know, a bright shock of dyed hair and piercings, and this absolutely enormous like bass guitar. And when you look at it more closely, it's actually got like a flamethrower and a gun built into it. And this is a follower of the Distortion Prince, who is turning their sort of metal abilities to the art of war. And I think their name is Riot.
Riot. I love that. And I think probably Riot is, as these mercenaries just approach you from all sides, even playing a little bit of like an ominous, Jaws music, like dun 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 dun. Lynch just kind of holds up his hands and says, "So, introductions. Lanky fucker there is Cripps, just the wit in the leather with the hand on his face. You might not spot Merchant, but he's seen you. And this, of course, is Riot playing us some lovely soundtrack tunes, because we know the Watcher loves a bit of drama, doesn't he, Nora? Now, I hate to press you, but you don't have a lot of time before that steam pipe explodes, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to get an answer from you now. Funny story, when I was young, I lived in a bit of a rough part of the country. My parents, they had maybe a dozen kids, and we all know when times get tough, you look at the youngest, the one who needs to be sacrificed, who needs to be sold off, right? I was the youngest, so I didn't wait for them to come for me. Siblings, brothers, sisters, parents, I took care of them. I walked out into the world without a single thought for any of them, as they screamed for help in that burning house, because it was them or me. And the longer you spend in this neck of the woods, custodians, the more I'm getting the sense that maybe it's you or us, because if you win these contracts, we don't. So either you work for us or you're a threat to us. And that is something I'll be taking action on quickly rather than later.
Vitria like looks sideways at Nora and nods and says, "I think you've got that back front, sir. I think it's either you or us." You see, you're under the impression that you're us. You're you. We're us. And with that, she's just going to kneel down and draw the sprawl mark on the floor with concrete dust. And then just run.
I absolutely love that. Let's remind ourselves of what the that does.
I think I wrote it down. I mean, I'm assuming because we're in a journey phase, it's more in the fiction, but
It's
basically,
more in the fiction.
a
Yeah.
living garden of steel and concrete will burst from the mark, and unless I do something to stop it, it will rapidly proliferate, and I can kind of try and get it to do something that I want, but basically, I just want it to sort of erupt.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think maybe if you're going to go dashing back, you hear the kind of the concrete road just rip upwards, and you hear the shouts of shock, maybe kind of a few stray bouts of gunfire from behind you. And as you kind of pile back into the van, you can just see this gorgeous garden of concrete and rebar that has erupted in the road. And Lynch and his posse just kind of, they've clambered up on top of it. They look amused. Lynch is maybe kind of kicking a bit of tentacled concrete that's creeping around his leg off. And he just kind of smirks down at you. And he raises a hand, not unfriendly, and says, "Message received."
I think Vitria will say to Nora, I don't know if it was the metal music that man was playing, but that was probably the coolest thing that I've ever done.
Nora kind of grudgingly like nods. Again, puts her foot on the gas, peels away from the scene, and she kind of turns to Vitria and says, "Way better than setting a building on fire."
Felt very cathartic, I've got to say.
I think that just as your kind of van sort of reverses in the road and peels away back towards the mainland away from Mauer Ward, let's go to Alex. Do you feel ready to lead your journey session today before we finish?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's fucking do it. I'll let you take the reins. Please go for it.
Yeah, my custom journey move, or journey scene, I should say, is called the Pilgrimage to Hiram. So across the channel in a god-haunted backwater of the consolidated Linger Straits lie the ruins of the Hangefeld Institute for the Research of Unobservable Matter, a vast pre-war facility that once boasted the greatest minds from Nesh and beyond. Its laboratories, power stations, staff dormitories, alpine gardens, and more have succumbed to the ravages of time, but not nature. Nothing grows there, for though it is invisible, something permeates the air that is anathema to the growth of local flora. Turn back. This is not a place of honor. John, I'll let you assign each of those paint the scene prompts to people at your leisure.
Absolutely. So I'm picturing towards this kind of this great crumbling and somewhat terrible place. I imagine Frank and Dr. Harrow approaching it themselves, or are we doing this very much as an unseen?
I think after the event at the at the mountain, yeah, he'd want to go there. And so,
Okay.
he Frank is, I'm not saying he would invite Frank along, like Frank's coming, I guess, like that's just a thing, but like we have to make a quick trip across the bridge and to go do this. So I think we're there.
Got it. Okay, well let's start with someone who's not here then. Let's go to James for the first paint the scene. Official records do not disclose the cause, let alone the effects of the Hiram disaster. What rumor have you heard about what happened here? So what rumor have you heard about what created this place?
Is this like out of character, or is this, I'm assuming this is more in the abstract. Is it? Yeah, okay. Yeah. I think the rumor is that there was like a mass transmutation of the land from one thing into another. So like it was just like a scene of chaos, and one, like all the water turned into like you know, red steam or something, some kind of horrendous act happened, and now it's like this kind of divine chaos zone where nobody can visit, whether that's true or not.
Very nice. Thank you. And for Rhyme, what trials must be overcome to safely reach the Hiram complex? How has the CLS tried to keep wayward explorers out?
I think one of the first things that a traveler might encounter is just a classic moat that may have been dug on purpose. It kind of does look like the surrounding land just pulled away from the land the Institute was on, and it's just an endless drop. But some enterprising treasure hunter has slung a rope bridge across a hidden part of this massive canyon. But if someone goes past that, there is something that was actually built on purpose, is what's called a guardian gas. Sure, I'm just alliterating tonight. It's fine. Which is basically a security guard that you never have to pay or feed or anything, that kind of just mills around the place. And if someone gets caught in it, it throws them out with extreme prejudice. And someone who gets thrown out will end up in the moat/canyon. So it's kind of important to avoid this gaseous, not quite creature, not quite machine thing.
Fantastic. Thank you. Frank, and maybe you are seeing this as you're in your car with the broken windshield, you approach the remnants of the facility. Even now, power still works in select parts of the facility. What plays over the intercom on an endless repeat?
I think that there's a steady background noise of static on most of the intercoms. And then periodically, it will replay the last part of kind of a black box type transmission of what like occurred during this disaster. And there's like a technical lead up of like, you know, like chamber 3 prepared, ready, execute number 4, loading. And then like finally it concludes with a like countdown, almost like a space shuttle launch, like 10, 9, 8. And then they get to 3, and then you hear a what? And then just the static returns. And then, you know, 10 or 15 minutes later, you catch the end of that bit of the recording again, and then static occurs. And that's kind of the repetitive loop.
Goosebumps. I love it. And the final paint the scene, which is going to go to Alex. The very heart of the temple is the heart of the disaster itself. How have others modified it in honor of the myriad gods of the chemical convocation?
It is this subterranean chamber, slightly built like like an orb, a large spherical space, half collapsed, some protective shielding hanging in loose segments from the walls, open to just this exposed part of the facility. Not quite like an explosion, but not quite like a collapse either. And amidst like this like tangle of bent and rended iron catwalks and like, metal struts and other bits of equipment that have been shunted off to the side, almost like deliberately cleared. There is a dug, like chipped through with like pick and hammer, pit in the middle of the room, that has been filled over years with just a cocktail of various different chromatic chemicals that do not interact with one another and do not react or catalyze anyway. They just swirl constantly in a soft, gentle whirlpool of acrid fumes, and half submerged in this pit in the center of these chemicals is what looks like a cross between like a sea mine and like a car engine, just this big mechanical thing with a bunch of orb shaped bunch of like struts coming off of it, where like plugs and tubes and things once probably were built into it, but now sits half submerged, slightly broken, and just humming. And a bunch of prayer marks have been painted in radium paint all throughout the room that give it a sickly greenish glow on top of the colors from the pit.
I adore it. As the two of you, I guess, stand looking up at this extraordinary miracle, this monstrosity, let's conclude with a recall a time. What abandoned or decrepit place fascinated you as a child? What abandoned or decrepit place fascinated you as a child?
I think Nim slings his bag off of his shoulder and lets it drop beside him with a heavy, slightly triumphant breath, and just looks on at this great work. And in the silence of this space, relative silence, there's still a hum and probably the shriek of a Geiger counter somewhere. But he just kind of whispers softly, "I never thought I would ever see something so great." He looks over at Frank with a slight smile. "Even as a boy, growing up in the post-war streets, those vast, ruined temples of glass and steel, edifices to the Saint Electric, like hollow bones filled with the soft hum of failed circuitry. I wandered them in my youth. Never thought anything could be grander than those ruins. Oh, how wrong I was."
Yeah, as Dr. Harrow reminisces a bit as he gazes upon the glory of the shrine, Frank is standing within eyesight, but kind of further afield of Dr. Harrow. He's like down just where the hallway opens up into this space. And he looks, out of the window next to him, looks down at like an outbuilding that is largely burned and consumed. It's charred, but not with the same colors you would normally expect charred matter to see. It's like all greens and purples instead of blacks and red embers. And we like follow through Frank's eyes as he's sort of transported back to his youth. We saw in a previous one of these verses where Frank, lost his family to a fire at a fairly young age, and I think that where the apartment burned out was not actually repaired by the landlord of the building with any sort of haste, and so as a sequence, we see Frank at different ages as he's slowly getting older, where he comes back and he visits that place again. He like crawls over the yellow caution tape, and he pushes out a board covering one of the shattered windows, and he crawls inside and visits the place where he grew up, the place where he used to live, now all cinder and ash and bits of fallen pipe from the ceiling, electrical wire strewn about, its shielding burnt off. And he sits in the wreckage and just kind of remembers what it once was. He visits this place like his own shrine.
Thank you. So yeah, as mentioned in the chat, because the journey move was basically an interruption, we will have a proper kind of chance for Vitria and Nora to connect and clear some conditions at the start of the next session. And I think, yeah, we'll do that at the start of the next session. And of course, we can have that for Dr. Harrow and Frank as well. But let's definitely hear what happened to Frank Palanche, because actually I think this can tie quite nicely back into the conspiracy. So please take it away, Alex.
Frank Palanche, sometime after the event at the hotel, is cutting clear down a mountain on his skis, racing, the wind and snow, whipping past him as he carves a graceful but almost violent path down this mountain with such precision and skill. There's the crowds assembled at the base of the slope, watching him descend, kicking up large billowing clouds of snow out behind him as he hits an embankment and shifts his weight and goes into a vast drifting slide, banking to the right, hits a mogul and takes to the air, stiff-legged, as sailing there for a moment, arcing perfectly, lands and continues his descent. He can feel the wind, the cold, the rush, the adrenaline, but he hasn't been feeling well lately. And he was determined to still perform today, but he really has not been feeling well. He feels hot. He feels itchy all over, and it gets worse. He just feels himself sweating profusely, and despite his cutting edge focus to get to the bottom of the slope and finish the run and do it with all of the aplomb that comes with it, he is just mostly thinking about how he desperately can't wait to be off the mountain, curl up with a nice hot drink and a beautiful woman or two. And as he comes to the end of the slope and comes across the finish line to the applause of the onlookers, he just feels so hot, soaked through his parka and his ski mask. And he doesn't even reach to take off his goggles. He just reaches under the collar to grab the ski mask and just pull it off, and goggles all at once. He is so soaked through, and he pulls it off. He feels like a weird tugging, a weird pull and a slight pop, not painful, but somewhat unpleasant. And he drops his ski mask and goggles to the ground, head to the sky to breathe in deep. And he doesn't really register that the applause has stopped, and there are instead horrified gasps and a couple of screams of fear. And as his eyes, shift down from the sky and look around at the onlookers, they don't have cheer and admiration. They have horror. Some are even bending over and retching into the snow. And he furrows his brow, confused as to what they're looking at. And as he glances down at the snow, he sees curiously a strange, gooey mass congealed around the mask he pulled off, and a lump that looks like a nose. He touches at his face and is perturbed to find that he doesn't have a nose. But oh God, is he itchy? But what is happening to him? He's so warm. Oh God, he's so warm. What's happening? He needs air. And he just reaches up and unzips his parka. And as he pulls open the parka, large globs of gooey, almost liquefied flesh and insides all come spilling out into a hot, steaming slurry on the snow below, as his irradiated and melted body just stands in the open air, stringing bits of flesh hanging off of him, before he just looks up at the crowd and collapses.
10 out of fucking 10. Love that. And I think just to close things off, we're going to hear the horrified screams of the crowd over the radio, becoming almost tuneful, as we hear Riot strumming on his guitar. And Joe Lynch kind of sits back and smirks and says, same symptoms as Sanju Medina now. Ain't that a coincidence? And he kind of gets heavily to his great feet. And he is, of course, inside the Saint Electric bunker on the cliffs of Mauraward. And he just goes to the door and peers out, and we can see that where once this great kind of time-based engineering device was being constructed, this energy generator based on the flow of time, something rather more horrible is being constructed. A Faraday cage shaped like a spindly human, just a kind of great cage rising up into the sky, and inside we can just see the screaming citizens of Mauer Ward. The various mercs are kind of tapping in the nails, working on this construction. Lynch just smirks and then closes the bunker door. He says, as he reaches for the phone and begins to dial, "You ever hear the phrase, there's more than one way to skin a cat, Riot?" "Hello, is that the Bureau for the Investigation and Assimilation of Stray Deities?" "Yeah, I'm a concerned citizen. I want to report a crime." We cut to black on that. All right, that was fantastic. Thank you, folks. You completed 2 assignments in a single session. That was brilliant. Let's go first to XP, if you don't mind. Rhyme, what did you do? Obviously, everyone got to complete an assignment, so everyone marks that one off.
Yes. Did you struggle with your personal faith? I mean, maybe a little bit, where she was kind of trying to say to Vitria, "Why did you put me in charge of this?" And Vitria like making her the center of attention when she would rather not have been. Maybe a past faith where she did not recognize her old classmate, and she really should have. Both of them should have recognized each other. They flunked their spycraft classes, apparently. So I guess either of those, maybe. And were you vulnerable with someone? I don't think so. So just the 2, because I don't think we engaged with any god, angel, or other divine manifestation.
I mean, you both did engage with Mother Asbestos at the start.
Yeah, we kicked Mother Asbestos out of the meeting, and then she dropped Feather on us, and we also summoned the feral god as a distraction.
True. So yeah. Okay, so 3 then, which give me 1 advancement and an extra box. Okay.
Sure will. Awesome. Thank you. Alex, for Dr. Nim.
Yeah, I was vulnerable with Frank at the start of the session there, kind of gave him some encouraging words. And I did deliver a monologue on the horrors that society accepts as good and necessary to Montessa as I was approaching her about how, you know, doing all of this for the money and people getting what they deserve and all that.
Very, very nice. Okay, James, how did Vitria do?
So I resolved an assignment. I engaged as mentioned, we engaged with we summoned the sprawl to escape from the strikes, and also Mother Asbestos. And I talked quite a lot about the futility of individual choices when explaining how I couldn't just like sack off biased because I had a contract. So
Yeah,
I'm
that
gonna
works perfectly.
which means I've got an advancement.
Very nice. Okay, and David, how did Frank do?
Yeah, so it's astonishing to me that Dr. Harrow and Frank did not engage with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation this episode, because we certainly could have, but we just didn't. Well, I say that is during the journey phase, are we considering like the temple as it's the result of some divine action of some kind? I don't know how we want to rule on that.
I guess you didn't kind of actively engage with it in
No.
the story sense, did you? There wasn't like a moment of really your characters interacting with it. So maybe that would be like for next time you definitely get it, depending on what you're going to do in this mysterious place, which I'm very excited about.
Fair enough. My other two, did you go out of your way to connect with the local community, and did you undermine the orders of your superiors or use the assignment to pursue personal interests? I think Frank's been using the assignment to pursue personal interests as far as freeing Peter. I don't think, like, without consent from family or whatever, burning the body of an adjudicator in order to free a indentured person is probably in line with his normal job description, but he certainly did it. And go to your way to connect with the local community. I kind of was thinking along the same lines, like Frank abandons resolving the mystery, really just leaves it in Dr. Harrow's hands in order to go back and like save the people at at Vernon's lodge. So that's kind of what I was thinking there.
That makes perfect sense to me. Please take it.
Which means that also will be an advancement this session.
Fantastic. Almost everyone. Very cool. Okay, thank you. So let's go back over that just to grab rewards. So James and Ryan, I'll let you have first pick of the rewards for the Skyward Sprawl, which I've placed in the chat just to go through them. We have got a valuable geometric artwork from the Penthouse collection, a lump of concrete jackhammered from a wall with a sigil carved on it, Novice Timber as a recurring side character who can help out with matters related to construction and repair, a government manual entitled Architectural Miracles, Guidelines to Neutralization, an elixir that dissolves concrete and melts steel, or the gift of the prayer mark of the Skyward Sprawl, if the custodians have reached an understanding with it, which you didn't complete the highest complexity, so I have to check if that's actually available to you, because it may not be. And so James, you said...
As long as you didn't either antagonize the sprawl or kill the sprawl, I think that would be fun.
All right, that's fair. But James, you're going to take the lump of concrete with the sigil.
I think I like the elixir.
Very nice. And Ryan, you do want Novice Timber and her mice to stick around, which awesome, absolutely. And then David.
Let's see. So the lump of concrete, I've added them into the character keeper for the mystery, so we can have it marked there. So Novice Timber. Oh, there's manuals. Oh, Frank would love a manual. We've got a government manual, Architectural Miracles Guidelines for Neutralization. Yeah, Frank will take the government manual entitled Architectural Miracles Guidelines for Neutralization.
Very nice. And then let me just add the Winter Spite ones as well. So for these, we've got a novelty snow globe. The plaque reads, "Welcome to Vernon's Lodge. It shines with an eerie light when gods or angels are near." The Horbitten hand itself, which I just quickly added in because it felt appropriate that one of you could pick that up. That is the frostbitten hand that appears to summon the latecomer. A mountaineer's ice pick, when plunged into any surface, it clings on with a frightening obstinacy. A singing mechanical's deer head. When wound up, it sings ominous two-line prophecies. A gorgeous fountain pen, the nib is painfully sharp and that doesn't appear to be normal ink inside. Or a police commissioner's ID card and badge. What would you like?
Anything to speak to you, Harrow?
I'm still deciding, but I kind of hope Vitria takes the pen. But I mean, ultimately, I'm fine. Ooh, these are good though. I'm not sure yet.
Well, it's the one I was thinking of because I'm about to take an advancement where I get a huge architectural drawing, so that would be pretty cool.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I think Frank wants the novelty snow globe.
Yeah. God, these are all so good. The Horbitten hand is a good one, but I think I'm actually gonna take the police commissioner's ID card and badge.
I was hoping you would.
Very nice. And Ryan?
Yeah, I'll take the singing mechanical deer head then.
Of course you would. That's amazing.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. I think that's all of our admin. Alex, since you said you need to step away and do some laundry, do you want to stars and wishes and then you can nope out to your heart's content, or?
Sure, yeah. Just swap it over, and I'll just take a minute. But I'll come. I won't leave. I'll just come back to listen in. But I'll kick things off. Wow, 2 assignments like resolved. Both really cool. I mean, Star David, the absolute energy I could feel coming off of the 2 of us as we were just like coming to the end of that scenario. That was so fucking cool. Very like dramatic. And I agree with something that was mentioned in the chat, I think by Jay. No, this is by you, about how it's like when you fail a theory, the second one's always even better. And I'm just like, this was a great like plot twist of like, oh, Montesa was actually behind it all. That was really awesome. I really enjoyed like the scenes of what you did with Peter at the end there, because I was thinking the same of like, let's put the thing on a dead body, didn't even vocalize it, just like that was awesome. That was so fucking cool. And yeah, I mean, collective star, I guess, to James and Ryan, because with the that little rivals journey scene there, I love the hostility present between the two of you, especially coming off of Nora, but also just being like, it's actually, not verbatim, but just being like, like, no, actually, you guys suck, draws a volatile prayer mark and runs away, is so fucking funny. I keep forgetting that, like, until I look at the character keeper, that Vitria is just like this, like little like Velma glasses woman with a 70s swoop haircut, who I just keep forgetting about this, and then just imagining her sprinting away from the scene is always so funny. But I love that a lot. Also, just I mean, started the rival prompt of getting us to describe them. That was really cool, John. I thought that was a really fun way for us to engage with them and kind of personalize them. And also, I said in the chat that, wow, that is the most rival D&D adventuring party thing I've ever fucking heard. They have their little, genting metal bar. They have the Doof Warrior. That was sick. That was really cool. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see what happens next, because that little stinger with the people of Mal Reward is horrifying and has implications that I can't wait to deal with later. So that's part of my wish. And also, I'm just kind of looking forward to more scenes back together again. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do like we need to go to a diner, the 4 of us. We need to have a nice meal, and relax and hang out and just share stories about our ridiculous experiences. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, we need our shawarma scene. We need our everybody's back together. Stars for me. Oh man, there were so many fun bits this session. These have been really fun assignments to have in parallel, and so it's fun to see them resolve also in parallel. That like the timing, I think, worked out really, really well. I really loved just playing out to Alex's point, just playing out the new theory for what the heck happened, because whenever you do accept that everything you previously thought was wrong, it means you have to reevaluate who each of these characters are in the context of like a new theory, and that always ends up like just really fun to like reassess your original assumptions under the premise that you were like not wrong to begin, like not correct rather to begin with. So that was really fun to do. Star for John, I loved the energy that, now that we've seen them like in person directly interacting, that our mercenary crew brought. They were like intimidating, but also you can sense that, yeah, they staged this whole elaborate situation in part maybe as a defense against Nora, because like if they bring enough drama to the situation, then like sort of trying to incur favor with the Watcher and the Wings, which, given that, I think, as we've seen in several situations, because of the ability to like warp reality, the Watcher is like one of the most dangerous people to have on your side. To try to like, I don't know, they feel like cautious. They're like cautious but antagonistic, which I think is an interesting way for us to meet them. Like they absolutely are coming from a place of power, but also like they surrounded them immediately. They set up this whole thing. It's like we are being treated as rivals, even if they are being kind of angsty against us. I thought it was a really fun scene. And I loved, everything from Nora and Vitria during that was just fantastic. I loved all the micro interactions. I love tying in Nora's past, having somebody who she grew up with being part of this other party. I think that's going to manifest later as a wish. I'm really excited to see how that plays out down the road as we get deeper into the conspiracy, because that's going to lead to some emotional funness. I'm eager for it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a really fun session. I'm really excited. As far as like a larger wish, I think I just want to see us get back together again, and I'm excited to hear like what our next assignments are. How far along are we on our conspiracy clue counter? Because I feel like we're getting dangerously far along.
You're on 5, so you're pretty much dangerously close to the confrontation itself.
Yeah, we're marching ahead. So yeah, that's my brief stars wishes.
So many stars. I don't even know where to start, really. Like, I think I just have to say, like, there's so much great, like, Nim toxic poisonings. Like, just there was so much, like, KGB shit in this episode, and I was really there for it. Like, bromine charcoal briquette sacrifices and, like, poison gas. I also like I made a note. I loved Frank's rescue, that Frank had just like copied himself and gone off to be helpful and had like saved the day and saved everyone and was as helpful as it was possible to be in the situation. And I also just love all the mental backflips Frank has to do to keep reconciling everything. It's just like so entertaining every time. And I love the stuff, just the visuals of the hotel and of the ice. Just the setting was the lodge was just really really good and had this really like it just I could just see it in my head the whole time. And my last star is just for having a wholesome ending for the Skyward Sprawl, which can end very badly a lot of the time. It's just, and I always wanted someone to like save the family, even though it seemed a bit like a long stretch. I'm glad that happened at least once, as the writer. So yeah, and I have a wish actually that so we're in a journey phase, and we've both had there's going to be like we've had a scene, and there's a scene happening for Nim and Frank. I actually want to like double down on what David said. I want another journey scene within the phase where we get together. I want 2 scenes in the phase, and I want us to get back together and have a scene and possibly have the moves in that scene rather than I just think, especially since we've lost the inevitable hour, I think that would be really nice to have one extra like scene and moves after before the phase is over, and we figure out where we have to go next.
Okay, Star's gonna repeat Frank's drop an extra hand and run to the rescue was very good. Though I did especially like Dr. Harrow's response to suddenly finding out that it's just been Frank's extra hand here the whole time. Like, when did you even have time to make this swap? And yeah, Frank's throwing of the handy dandy corpse into the fire instead of Peter. So that was also nice. Vitria just throwing the sprawl in our rival's face and running. Also fun. Vitria deciding to just sit and take minutes instead of taking charge of this meeting when, arguably speaking, Vitria is the one who actually has the knowledge to handle this meeting instead of throwing it at Nora and watching her panic. What else? Gosh, Dr. Harrow's monologue and then exhalation of poison. It's just very dramatic and quite fun. Also Dr. Harrow just saying after that, like, and now we're retreating to a temple. Let's go. Just kind of being like, yeah, I know we have other places to be. I need to go and just pray for a bit. I think I did mention in the chat for when our skier melted. That is the second time I've had a side character in a game I played this week melt. Just as horrifying the second time. And yeah, I guess both a star and a wish that, oh, we left Merroward way too long, and now we're going to have to deal with that. So looking forward to seeing how that's going to come about.
Indeed. Yeah, I think most of it's been said, but for me, I adored the little bouts of humanity. So I loved it when you checked in on Novice Timber, because I almost completely forgotten that we could resolve that and give them like a nice family moment, and that was amazing. I kind of privately cheered when David, you just went, oh, because the implications of what that meant for Frank having gone and done some heroics of his own were so wonderful. Loved Dr. Harrow taking down Montessa. Because, obviously it's a situation where maybe she could have gone on the offensive, but actually what you're doing was so cool. It was so much more fun to sit back and go, yeah, I'm pretty certain she's going to fall for what you're doing here. So really enjoyed that. I loved how spiky Nora and Vitria were when they encountered the rivals, whether it was Vitria just saying the rudest things and then putting down the equivalent of divine flashbang versus Nora just almost driving the car onto this this horrible guy. So yeah, just adored it. I adored how you all interacted with the kind of filling out the rivals. I don't know what it is yet, Ryan, but something's going to come of the fact that you and that Nora and her fellow student didn't recognize each other. I feel like that has to be the Watchers setting up for like a revelation later on. It's going to be more dramatic if you recognize each other later in the game. Yeah, tons of fun. And I guess on the significant wish, which has come up before, I think it could be very easy to kind of have all of you meeting up pretty much at the start of next session. I guess Alex, I leave it to your discretion how you want to handle this fascinating journey scene location that you found, because I believe you can now return there after the end of each assignment to gain more benefits. So we could start with that at the beginning of the next session, or kind of cut to all of you meeting up, and then we can fill that in later, completely up to you. But yeah, I see no reason why we shouldn't bring all of you together pretty much immediately at the start of the next session.